Morning guys, so we're going to do a run through of surds. We're going to start from the basics of simplifying, adding, subtracting and multiplying, and we're going to run all the way through to rationalising the denominator. So feel free to skip ahead to the part that you need, okay, as you might not need to go through all of it. So simplifying to begin with just means that all you're trying to do is split this into two numbers where one of those numbers is a square number. So root 75, I could say, is the square root of 25 times by the square root of 3. Now, the reason we've picked a square number is because I can actually square root a square number. Square root of 25 is just 5, and root 3 I can't simplify anymore, so it just stays as root 3. And that's it, you've simplified the surd. So if I look at this one, a square number that goes into 48 would be 16, and then root 3. Again, square root of 16 is just 4. Root 3 I can't simplify, so it stays as 4 root 3. Okay, if you picked 4 to begin with, you just have to simplify a little bit more afterwards. So if we look at this one, 4 root 27, leave the 4 in front for a minute. Square root of 7, I could say, is the square root of 9 times by the square root of 3. So leave the 4 where it is. The square root of 9 is actually 3, and I've still got the root 3. Numbers in front can be multiplied together, so 4 times 3 is 12, and I can't do anything with root 3, so that's it, that's my answer. Right, when it comes to adding and subtracting surds, what you need to do is get them so that they've got the same number inside the square root, so you should recognise the two square roots we've got here. Square root of 75, we've already worked out there, is just 5 root 3, and square root of 27, remember we could say is root 9 times root 3. Square root of 9 is just 3, so that's 3 root 3. So if I put that back in there. Once I've got the same numbers inside the square root, I can just do a normal addition. I've got 5 lots of something plus another 3 lots of that something. I've got 8 lots of that something. So in our case, 8 root 3. Okay, on the next ones, it's going to take a bit more simplifying. So 4 root 125, we're just going to deal with over here. So I've got 4 times. I could do root 25 times by root 5. Okay, square root of 25 is actually 5. So I've got 4 times 5 times root 5. That gives me 20 root 5. So that I can put back in there. I've got 20 root 5. That does give you a little bit of a clue to the second one. I know this needs to end up with a root 5. So 2 root 20, I could say, is 2 times root 4 times root 5. The square root of 4 is actually 2. So I've got 2 times root 5. These two go together. 2 times 2 is 4. So I've got 4 root 5. And again, I can put that back into my question. So I've now got 20 lots of root 5. Take away 4 lots of root 5 is going to leave me 16 lots of root 5. And that's it. I've got my answer. Okay, multiplying is just basically almost the reverse of what you were doing with simplifying. You're putting them back together. Sometimes you might have to simplify afterwards. So root 5 times root 3, you literally multiply the numbers inside the square root. I get square root of 15. Now there is no square number that goes into 15, so there's nothing else I have to do with that. That is my answer. If I look at this one, I've got no number in front is technically a 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. Root of 8 times root 5, well, 8 times 5 is 40. Now, this is something that can be simplified. So I've got 2 lots of. Root 40, I could say, is square root of 4 times by the square root of 10. When I square root 4, I get 2. So I end up with 2 times 2 is 4, root 10. And that's it. That's as simple as it's going to go. And then if I look at the last one there, so numbers in front get multiplied as normal. 2 times 4 is 8. Numbers inside the square root get multiplied. 3 times 6 is 18. Now, square root of 18 I can simplify. So leave the 8 as it is. Root of 18 I could say is square root of 9 times by the square root of 2. Now, the square root of 9 is actually 3. So I've got 8 times 3 is 24. Root 2 I can't simplify, so it stays as root 2. Remember, in all of these, the only time the square root sign has disappeared is because you've actually square rooted a square number, which is why the square root sign disappears. This one isn't a square number, so when I square root it, the square root sign doesn't disappear. Okay, and then we get on to multiplying out surds. Okay, Now, all this is basically using foil or grid, whichever method you've done for double brackets. And it's just that your answers are in terms of surds. So first term in each bracket, 2 times 4 is 8. Outside, I've got 2 times minus root 3. So the 2 just ends up in front. So I get minus 2 root 3. Inside, I've got 4 times root 3. We literally have 4 root 3. Just like you would if you did 4 times x, you had 4x. And last is root 3 times minus root 3. So a positive times a negative is a negative. Now, root 3 times root 3 would give you the square root of 9. Square root of 9 is actually 3. So when you multiply a surd by itself, you just get the number inside. So root 3 times root 3 is just 3. And then all I need to do is put together my terms. I've got 8 take away 3 is 5. And then I've got 4 lots of root 3. Take away 2 lots of root 3 leaves me with 2 lots of root 3. And that's it. I've simplified my surds. Okay, if we look at the next one, be careful. This one tidied up much nicer because the surds were exactly the same. This one's not going to tidy up quite as nice because you've got different surds involved. But if we follow same steps as we did last time. First is 15. Outside is going to give us minus 5 root 6. Inside is going to give us 3 root 2. And last, root 2 times root 6. So you get minus, and then root 2 times root 6 is root 12. Now I am going to just deal with root 12 over here, just in case it simplifies into something that helps us. So root 12, I could say, is root 4 times root 3. So that becomes 2 root 3. So instead of writing minus root 12 there, I'm actually going to write minus 2 root 3. Okay, it doesn't help because none of the terms are going to go together, but it just means you literally list everything as it is. 15 minus 5 root 6 plus 3 root 2 minus 2 root 3. There's nothing else you can do with that because all the surds are different, so it's not going to get any neater. You don't typically get one like this at GCSE, but just in case, this one is more common because it's something where you had to simplify afterwards. Right, rationalising the denominator. Now we're starting straight away with the ones with a sum, okay, just because I know you can do the other ones. So when you've got a sum involved, you have to multiply top and bottom by that exact same sum, but you change the sign. So instead of minus, it becomes plus. Okay, so everything that was on the bottom there, I've just changed the minus sign out for a plus. That means the top becomes nice and easy. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times root 5 is 3 root 5. On the bottom, now this is the difference of two squares. What you're actually doing is 6 minus root 5 multiplied by 6 plus root 5. And I will show it in full for this one, and then we'll use our little bit of a cheat method for the next ones. So if I used FOIL on this, I'd get 36 plus 6 root 5 minus 6 root 5 and then minus 5. So you'll notice the 2 in the middle cancel each other out. That's why we do this in the first place, because it gets rid of the surds. Okay, so those 2 in the middle, when you're rationalising the denominator, will always disappear. So all you actually need to do is first and last. So 36 subtract 5 gives me 31. And that's it. There's nothing that's common to those 3 numbers, so that is as neat as it's going to get. Now, quite often these come up as show that question. So it'll just say show that this can be written as this. You just need to know that to get from there to there, you're rationalising the denominator. So you use this method. So if I look at the next one, I've got an addition this time. So I'm going to multiply by the same sum, but this time with a subtraction. So as I said last time, on the top of this fraction is nice and easy. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times root 2 is 6 root 2. On the bottom, remember, you can write it all out if you like, or just remember you need to do first, well, that's 16, and last, minus 2. In which case, I get 24 minus 6 root 2 on the top and 14 on the bottom. Now, this is one where all 3 of those terms, not including what's inside the square root, all 3 of those terms divide by 2. So I can get 12 minus 3 root 2 over 7. And that is as simple as it's going to get. Okay, so just be careful if it can be simplified, you simplify it afterwards. Now, last ones we're going to do is a couple of examples where they get a little bit trickier. So when I say a little bit trickier, it's purely just because you've got both surds on the top and the bottom of the fraction. So if I look at this one, I know we don't really worry about what the top looks like. We just need to deal with the bottom. I want to get rid of any surds off the bottom of the fraction. So I'm going to multiply by 5 minus root 2 over 5 minus root 2. Now, this is where actually the bottom of the fraction becomes the easier one. Okay, because using our cheat method that we've just learned, you just do first, which is 25, and last, which is minus 2. So I know the bottom of my fraction is going to say 23. The top, you are going to have to use FOIL to work it out. Let me just zoom out again. So first is 3 times 5, that's 15. Outside is 3 times minus root 2, so that's minus 3 root 2. Inside is 5 times minus root 2, so minus 5 root 2. And last is minus root 2 times minus root 2. So a negative times a negative is a positive. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. So I end up with 15 and 2 gives me 17. And then minus 3 root 2 and minus 5 root 2 is going to give me minus 8 root 2. So the top of my fraction is going to be 17 minus 8 root 2. And there is nothing that 17, 8 and 23 divide by. So that is my final answer. Okay, so what I would say is for this one, pause the video at this point and have a go at what you can see here. Okay, and then listen through and just make sure that you got the answer right. So we're going to multiply top and bottom of this one by 4 minus root 3. That means, like I said, the bottom's going to be the easier one. 4 times 4 is 16. Root 3 times minus root 3 is minus 3. Remember, that only works because you've got everything exactly the same, except for that sign being changed. Okay, it's the difference of 2 squares. On the top, you've got 4 minus root 3 multiplied by 4 minus root 3. So this one, we're going to have to use FOIL. So if we use FOIL with this, I've got first is 16. Outside is minus 4 root 3. Inside is minus 4 root 3 again. And last is a minus times a minus is a plus. Root 3 times root 3 is just 3. So I end up with 16 and 3 gives me 19. These two together gives me a total of minus 8 root 3. So there's the top of my fraction, 19 minus 8 root 3. All I need to do is deal with the bottom. 16 subtract 3 is 13. Again, there's nothing all 3 divide by, so that is as simple as it's going to get. Okay, guys, so you've got 3 tasks to have a go at. With a 20-minute time limit on each. Just make sure you've had a go as much as you can in that 20 minutes on each of the topics.